Hi, welcome to Ask and You Shall Grow. I'm Kathy,
I'm Yasmina.
and we're just exploring topics that we have looked at, that we find interesting to talk about, and they're related to growth and learning, and that's it really.
Yes.
Shall we get in? Today's topic is limiting beliefs, and let's first think about what they are. What do you think a limiting belief is?
Limiting belief is where there's something that stops you from doing something. When you get out of your comfort zone, there's a high chance that there are limiting beliefs that are going to stop
That are keeping you in that comfort zone. So
They're
you're like,
keeping
I don't
you-
want to try that.
They're keeping you in that comfort zone, of course, and then it's hard for you to get out of because maybe you are scared. You are scared that something
Definitely.
bad will happen.
I completely think that. Yeah.
And many times those limiting beliefs appear even past experiences. Not only the fear of the unknown, although that is also true.
Yeah, that's true.
But is also the past experience.
It's almost like beliefs are like on a spectrum of what you believe and you allow that. And then what you don't believe and you're like, nope, not going there. Nope, can't do it. Scared. Like, I don't know if you felt it also with certain things when you try new things. I have it quite often.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
if I try something new, and again, it's something new, like I have no idea what I'm doing. And sometimes I'm very brave and I'm like, oh, this could be fun. And then I do it and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? What is this?
I
And
don't
then
know. I'm not sure of it.
Yeah.
You start doubting yourself because
That's
in
it.
the end, the limiting belief is a doubt that you have towards yourself.
I think that too. That's how I view it. So we actually met because we did a money masterclass, and in that masterclass we talked about limiting beliefs. That's why we thought it was so interesting, and it was a kind of a discovery for me. At least I found it quite confronting. We had a lot of information, but Ismina, I'm curious to know how you felt about there was some exercises that came up.
Yeah.
There was one where we had incomplete sentences and we had to finish them off. So in one of them was, for example, money creates and money makes people. And what did you write down actually? Because I put like money makes people rich, which is really like, duh.
I remember that I said money creates opportunities, but
Yeah, that was it. So yours
Right?
were actually quite positive. I remember hearing
I
yours
was
and I was
quite
like,
positive about
she's
that.
actually quite positive. So I don't think she has so many limits here. Whereas I think one of mine was money creates problems. And I was like, oh! I was like, am I quoting rap music? Is that why? Because, you know, Biggie sings more
Yeah.
money, more problems. I was like, oh no, is it Biggie or is it me? Like, is this really a problem? So I was like, I was a little bit worried.
it speaking
Yeah, is
here?
it me? Am I really believing that? And then we did the exercise where the coach basically told us all to think about money as a friend. You know, how would you feel about money? Would you be like, hey, good to see you. Are you always here? Are you always visiting me? We're such good friends. Or you're like, I don't trust you, get out. Like, how do you feel about money? And I felt really like, I don't trust money. Money comes, money goes. And I was like, wow, that's not good, man. How did you have the experience of that exercise?
I really liked it. I really liked it because it surfaced things that I wasn't aware of before. So I thought that was a really interesting exercise. Yeah, it was positive, but at the same time, it was like a love-hate relationship. Somehow, you know, and also if you think about that contrast, it's also like, I'm trusting this and I'm not trusting this. So it was full of contrasts.
That's so interesting, right? I think that's also the thing about when you actually uncover the limiting beliefs, whatever they are. We obviously did money workshop, but there's limiting beliefs in all areas.
Yes.
As in, they can be there. Not necessarily they always are. Sometimes you don't have it, and that's why that area is great. So maybe you love your job and it goes really well because you really aren't limited there. So maybe that's the place where you're free.
Yeah, either you didn't have limiting beliefs, or actually what is more satisfying is when you do have limiting beliefs, but then you
got past
overcome
them.
them.
Do you think there's a way to do that?
Yes, definitely. And that is by facing them, accepting them, by becoming aware of their presence in
definitely.
your life, and to not try to deny them. Because if you try to deny your limiting beliefs, it's not going to go well because you're denying who you are or a big part of who you are.
I think what you're saying is really hard because a lot of people, I've noticed, including myself, they're not aware of what they think. Like, I didn't know, I didn't trust money. I didn't know, I thought, you come and you go. I was like, oh, wow, that's not great.
Yeah.
I didn't really see that because I never thought of it as a friend. But the minute I did, I was like, oh. And it's not that I had it only in money. Of course, I've had it in other areas. And it's this feeling you just don't know until somebody either tells you and you probably might not listen.
But actually, that's really interesting because I had the same thing and I realized a very similar thing with the money, because for me it was like, okay, I'm trusting this, I'm not trusting this, what is this?
Yeah.
Because it was confusing, you know, like I never actually knew that I had that confusion in my mind beforehand.
Yeah.
Because if you know you're always not trusting money, for instance, you can work on trusting, right? If you trust it, then you trust it and you're on the right path. But if it's always this duality, then it's harder to work with, I
because
feel.
it's good and bad. It's not comfortable, actually.
Yeah, and I had it with a lot of things. Like also in my fitness experience with lifestyle and
Okay.
It was a very similar experience that I had, and I had to become aware of the things that I was thinking to be able to work with them.
I think that there are so many tools you can do to do that. Like, I don't know if you can think of any. I definitely think journaling helps. I don't know if you've had a diary and journal.
Yes, always.
I've done it since I was a girl, and I've actually looked back on my diaries at like 18, 19, because I made a lot of changes during that time. And I actually burned them because they were really negative. I left the religion I was raised in, and I found it really horrible. I hated being in the religion, not because of the people or the religion. It's because I felt it didn't suit me, and I didn't feel it was right.
Religion?
I was Jehovah's Witness, but my parents raised me as one, and I really think there's a lot of good in it, so I don't want to say anything bad about it. It's more that I felt like I was trapped. And so my experience during the time that I left it was really like depression, because it was so... like, what the hell happened to my life? Who am I? It was very confronting. So my diary entries were really sad. I was like, wow. And I thought, I'm not ever going to feel that way again. And I didn't let myself... that's why I burnt the books, because I was like, I'm burning it symbolically and literally so I can let go of that.
Okay,
so it was symbolic. Yeah, I went to the roof of my cousin's house in Peru. I don't know if my auntie's going to be happy to hear this. But I ripped every page and I burnt one by one. My cousin was with me, and it was very cathartic. Like... to let go, you know?
Yeah.
To be like, it's done
But
now.
that's actually a good method to let go of things.
Not that it healed everything, but it made me let go of the depression a lot. And I went back very grateful. Peru.
It gives you a different feeling, right? When you're actually burning and you're like, okay, I'm choosing to let that go.
But like looking back, thinking of how I wrote in that book, I was like, man, that was not fun. I was not happy at all. So sometimes journaling can really help if you keep like long-term journals, and not every day that you have to write in it. But when you look at the way you write, you're like, man, I wasn't happy. Oh, I was really happy. Right. And then you're like, oh, that thing makes me happy. For example, I love dancing. I love swimming, or whatever you love. I love being around my friends. Like, you realize then what it is that makes you joyful.
Yeah.
And then you can choose that and hopefully walk away from what limits you and makes you unhappy.
Yeah, and also I realize that many times not only what you write, but how you write, and actually how your writing looks.
Oh, that's another level. That's like psychology 101.
In fact, yeah, in fact,
That's
your
true.
perception of your experience, and it's based on how you felt in the moment when you wrote that.
I actually think one of the things I've learned the most now, because I've got a finance coach, that is really powerful is the words you use, and obviously the way you view things, but the words you use. So for example, if you're, oh no, I don't have enough money, oh no, I'm broke, then you're actually attracting the energy of that.
Yes.
And you really, it's different to say, for example, oh, right now I don't really want to spend money on that because I prefer doing this. Then it's not saying I don't have, it's more like, oh no, this is where my focus is. So it's not a lack, I don't have, but more, oh no, I have, but I want to do this instead. This is where my focus is on now.
Yeah, and actually it's also the words that you use, and then, you know, when you talk to people, that influences a lot.
Sure.
Your perception of it, but also the words that you don't speak. So basically the feelings that you have, because
of course,
I realize that many times we can say something positive, but actually we feel something negative.
Right. How do you deal with that then? Because that's quite tricky.
I just sit down with that thought and I become aware of it. I take deep breaths and I try to get a hold of it, not in a controlling way, but in a way that gives me more freedom to reshape that belief into something that is better for.
So if I understand correctly, you take a moment of stillness and you breathe, and you allow the feeling.
Yes.
And then does it go away?
Yeah. First of all, I just let it sink in. I feel like I'm not running away anymore because I feel like when I'm running away, that's when the problem comes after me faster. But if I sit down there, there's nothing that threatens me.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to work with it. This is something that I need to work with in time, and I'm just not rushing.
That's really beautiful. I think that's so powerful, actually, as a takeaway. So to wrap it up, some takeaways for sure we can use are breathing. I actually think that you underestimate how much breathing does.
Yeah.
Stopping, having a moment with yourself, whether you go to the toilet, you're like, okay, I need to sit on my own and be like, what am I feeling right now? Like for real, acknowledging your feelings and like letting them be.
Breathing all the time, also
Like, yeah, it's really
before
powerful.
talking, before having a conversation, before writing something, before, like, for me it's important before having classes, for instance. Like, so many people underestimate the power of breath,
Yeah, that's true.
and
You're
we
really
just
right.
breathe unconsciously.
And you don't notice even your breath, how it is going. So if you're anxious, you're like, you're
Yes.
breathing differently to when you're relaxed.
Yeah.
So just being aware, oh God, I'm breathing not enough, or I'm breathing weird. And then taking a moment to sit with your feelings and then calming down again. It changes the whole vibe as well. that you have.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So powerful.
It makes me more present.
Yeah.
As I realize when I'm not in control of my breath, is that something that we can control, right? I cannot control the outside circumstances.
Yeah.
But I can control my reaction to that. And I do that through my breath. It's the guiding force.
I think that's so healthy. I think also because you're aware of the body so much, because you do movement, of course, and you help people with that, then you're really aware of that. But I think as a teacher, I'm more focused on the logic of a lot of things, like how things work practically and how to use them, that I skip this part. Because it's something I've learned, but it's not naturally in me because I'm very thinking.
Yeah, and also
So I'm focused a lot on the thinking,
It's very nice that you noticed that and that you mentioned it, because also I see it in my classes. When people start thinking about doing like a certain movement pattern, they stop breathing. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's harder to breathe consciously while also thinking deeply about something.
That's true.
It's like multitasking somehow, but at the same time, if you practice it enough with intention, it's not that hard.
It's not, but it is a practice. And I think all of it, again, confronting your own beliefs, what you're saying, it takes a lot of guts and bravery. And I think a lot of people find it hard to confront themselves. So what you said about sitting and being like, I'm going to let my feelings be, that's quite scary for most people. They'll just go, no, and run into the next thing and not have their feelings.
But do you think it's that they are scary or that they are impatient?
Maybe both, because I think fear is like the underlying thing. So from what I'm learning with my finance coach, which is really quite spiritual,
all right,
is that there are two main energies you're in, right? Main energies. That doesn't mean you don't have like sub branches of that. One is love and one is fear. Those are the main driving force. So love is like relaxed, happy, abundant, creative, all these things that are beautiful. And then you have fear, who's like restricting, limiting, that's anxious, all these other things that come from fear.
Yeah.
Lack, very much lack. So you're like, oh no, not enough, not good enough. I'm not good enough. This isn't good enough. That sort of mindset of not feeling safe.
Yeah.
And that's really fear.
Indeed, it comes.
And so if you're not in one, you're in the other. So the minute that you're, for example, like I said, if you're scared and you don't realize, wait a minute, I'm fearful right now. Yeah. I need to stop and go back to the everything's okay vibe of love. Then you're not going to feel good. You're always going to have that.
That's why I'm not focusing on letting that go. For instance, if I have a limiting belief or, fear for something, I'm not focused on, okay, get out of my life.
Yeah.
I'm accepting it. I'm embracing it. I'm like, okay, this is part of me. I'm going to explore it.
But that's very brave of you, Yasmina. That's a very brave move. I'm not saying that people can't do it. Not everyone feels comfortable to confront that.
I wasn't comfortable at the beginning.
Most people aren't. But
I was just curious.
I'm curious what it is that made you do that. And it's not that you have to answer it.
Curiosity.
You tried a new way. You were like, let's do something else.
I was just curious. I was deeply curious to explore new feelings. And I was like, okay, I feel like this. Why am I feeling like that? What made me? And also when I was a kid, every time there was something that upset me, something that didn't work out as I wanted it.
That's very
wise. Beginning. Yeah, curious to explore and reflecting a lot.
So that's my point. I feel like that's something when you reflect. And to be honest, children don't do that naturally, I must admit. When you look at children's development, because I studied that as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Also, you're a teacher.
Yeah,
so
I'm a teacher, but I also work with kids, taking care of them and stuff. Yeah. And I studied development from kids from 0 to 18. And, kids don't naturally have that in them. They're a bit like, Freud's theory of the ego, the id, and the superego. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
So the id is like, I'm hungry, eat. I desire this, get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very basic. That's kids. They're in that stage when they're little. The older they get, the more they go into the ego, where they're like conscious of how everybody looks at them and their self and their perception of who am I? I am, I don't know, I'm a sports person, I'm a blah. That identity, you start to form that, and that becomes part of what you hold on to. And then the super ego is like that ideal self that you want to live up to. That's like what you really wish to be, but maybe
Yeah.
you fall short of it sometimes. And I think really kids are at that id stage. They're very like hungry, eat, angry, cry. They don't.
Yeah, that's why they're so impulsive.
And that's why as a kid you don't really reflect very well because you're still too little to have the capacity. And the older you get and your frontal lobe develops and you can plan long term, then you can also think more deeply, and it's easier with age. That's why people calm down with age.
As they grow older, they're looking more for calm and
But it's because they
patience
can.
rather
They
than
can.
just, yeah.
They can. They're capable. So it's
And they see
interesting.
also the beauty of it because
Of course.
they don't want chaos in their lives, for sure.
But that's because they've had chaos, so they're like, that wasn't good. Let's not go there. But I think again, like when you look at the development, it's like it makes sense that young people don't. But you did reflect already, so you can think about it yourself. But it's interesting that you learn to reflect because that's not what most people do. And some people do have the practice, and religions obviously encourage it. So like in many religions, you have like meditation, or you have practices where why do we do that? What does God think? And then you're thinking really about how you're acting and how others are being affected. But that isn't that everybody has that. So that's a really beautiful thing to have. And it helps you mature in a way and to confront yourself and be like, what's going on? But it doesn't exist for everyone. Some people do not have that moment where they talk and ask themselves questions.
Yeah, but I think it also comes at different points for different people.
Sure.
Because
we have strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then that is influenced by the context, by the people around you, of course, by the first years of childhood. And
True.
yeah, there are a lot of external factors that are influencing us.
But, okay, to round it up, because it's been really interesting to explore, what would we recommend to someone to do to try to explore or uncover these limiting beliefs? Because for me, it was really great, the exercise of the incomplete sentences with money.
Yes.
Like money makes people, or money is, or money creates. That was really interesting. When I wrote down immediately what came to mind. And the exercise with, if money was a friend, how would you feel about it?
Yes. Yeah,
that was such a cool tool. Can you think of any that you can think about around limiting beliefs?
Yeah, I remembered also the exercise that we did during the workshop. It was, to keep a page for positive talk.
That's
and
a really good
the other one for negative talk.
You can't say it once and forget about it. It's got to be that you consistently are working on changing your own belief and telling yourself it really.
Yeah.
Every time that you do something wrong, you're like, you know what? It's okay. I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm a human and I'm enough as I am, and it's all right.
Yeah, exactly. And to not try to go for the easier option either. Because then you're not going to actually reach the goal into really fully changing that perspective.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you for watching.